Pravṛtti and Nivṛtti, two ways of life. Pravṛtti means to live amidst worldly duties and interests with the senses and actions directed primarily towards the external world. This is the way of life that most of us are living in the modern or Western world. Nivṛtti, on the other hand, is the path of turning back, the path of turning within, towards spiritual contemplation and placing the source, or God, at the center of our existence, literally within, and fulfilling our familial and professional duties. That's an important point, that we still fulfill our familial and professional duties, even in the path of Nivṛtti. Literally speaking, Pravṛtti means external activity or work, behavior, and Nivṛtti means turning back, withdrawing, detaching. For as long as we live in Pravṛtti, our thoughts turn mainly towards worldly things, to pleasure and hobbies and worrying about position, income, and possessions. Initially, school and education occupy our thoughts, then later profession and family. Finally, in old age, we worry about our health and our inheritance. These are common worries on the path of Pravṛtti. So that there are no misconceptions, I would like to clarify this. I love when the author speaks in the first person. It's very personal. It is proper and necessary for us to fulfill our responsibilities and duties to our family and society. And there is no problem with being comfortable or prosperous. But those people who care about nothing and are totally wrapped up in Maya, which means material existence, the worldly illusion and delusion, and constantly run after it, behave irrationally and short-sightedly, in the belief that it is absolutely essential to create something. Their efforts are persistently directed towards, outwardly, one car after another, new things constantly bought and accumulated. These are clear signs that the inner self has still not had enough, and in spite of all the disappointments and failures, is not yet fed up. We make a big mistake when we think our supreme goal in life is to experience and enjoy the world. What does enjoyment mean? A wise person knows that desires are never ending. We are constantly hungry and thirsty, even if we have just eaten well. No worldly pleasures satisfy us forever. Desire soon rises anew. Only something long-lasting and unchanging is able to give us true satisfaction. That which changes is unreal. Only the eternal and unchanging self, that which you are, is real. For as long as we live in Pravṛtti, our thoughts turn mainly towards worldly things, as we have said. If we follow one path, we will inevitably reach where that path leads. When we turn our mind towards the outer world too much, we lose contact with our inner world and the divine self. Therefore, the only way out of Maya, this worldly illusion, is through Nivṛtti. When the children are grown, we should hand over to them all our acquired possessions and gradually withdraw from active work. As we keep the mind free of worldly desires and turn towards our source, Nivṛtti should predominate, not just externally, but more importantly, inwardly. neither money nor possessions make us inwardly rich. Rather, true wealth lies in a peaceful heart and contentment. Only in Nivṛtti can the soul permanently quench its thirst for happiness and knowledge. One day, every human will attain perfection, though many may need several life cycles. The two ways of life described here are like two branches of a tree. The Pravṛtti branch bends down towards the world, whereas the Nivṛtti branch goes upward towards the divine consciousness. Love and yearning for the Supreme Self develops once the consciousness has reached an appropriate stage, just as the field of a farmer must be prepared before sowing. The consciousness also needs much preparatory work. It can take years, or even many lifetimes, before the seeds of spirituality emerge. To recognize at which level you are, and whether or not you will be able to reach the goal in this lifetime, ask your own heart. Books are unable to give an answer to this. At best, you can evaluate your own qualities. Spiritually minded people prefer satsang, the company of people who inspire goodness and truthfulness, whereas people who are still laden with many karmas are more attracted to maya. Very little of their time, if any, is occupied by spiritual matters, with most of their time being dedicated to material interests and pleasures. A further symptom of spiritual immaturity is an unsettled and changeable mind, always making new resolutions and giving up again when facing the slightest obstacle. All too often it happens that, after practicing for some time, an aspirant becomes discouraged and doubts the outcome. The path to truth is lined with failures and disappointments, as we recognize the inappropriateness of many of our ideas and must discard them one after another. That is why you can only achieve success if you show firm resolution, unwavering perseverance, and have an unshakable will. One day, all karmas will be cleared. Therefore, we should allow nothing and no one to discourage us. Continue to strive patiently and constantly, even if your initial expectations are not fulfilled. Only those who stay on the path and go on with unwavering faith, patience, and steadfastness are able to realize the spiritual goal in this life with the guidance and help of a spiritual master. Do not wait until it is too late. One day, life ends, and with it, the chance to achieve something. There is a very illuminating story about this. So, let's explore. A Maharaja, a great king, by the name of Jaswant Singh, once lived in Jodhpur. He was a learned, wise, and spiritual ruler, as well as being well advanced in yoga. Besides government business, he performed his yoga exercises daily and was punctual with his meditation. He lived a truly exemplary life. One day, he decided to find out if his closest colleagues and confidants were truly devoted to him. Often it is difficult to know whether someone is merely saying beautiful words or if they are speaking honestly from the heart. So, Jaswant Singh devised a test to see how far he could trust his ministers and officials. He called his closest ministers to him and asked them if they would fulfill one wish for him. The ministers assured him assiduously that they would do anything for him, even if it cost them their lives. The Maharaja said, "My request is that when I die, all the jewelry and the jewels that I am wearing on my body at that time be distributed amongst the poor. One of the ministers stepped forward and begged, "Do not speak of your death, O king. May you live for 1,000 years." The Maharaja replied, "Please accept my gratitude for your good wishes, but nobody lives forever, and no one knows the day and hour when they must say goodbye." The ministers then vowed that they would carry out all of the Maharaja's instructions, and soon forgot the whole affair. 2 weeks later, the Maharaj decided to carry out the test. He possessed the ability to enter the state of samadhi. In yoga, that means supreme consciousness, which is union of the knower, the knowledge, and the object of knowledge. You become one with all these three aspects. So he possessed the ability to enter this state at any time, at will. In samadhi, superficially, the body appears to be dead. Heartbeat and pulse appear to have stopped completely, and the breath is almost totally suspended. But the senses are fully intact, and one is able to hear and see everything. And so, the Maharaja feigned a heart attack and entered samadhi. The doctor, who was summoned immediately, pronounced him dead. The ministers stood around the bed of the supposedly deceased ruler as they filled with consternation. Finally, they began to remove his rings, necklaces, and bracelets. One of them asked, "What should be done with the jewelry now? Our master wished us to distribute it to the poor of the country." But the Prime Minister vehemently contradicted him. "That doesn't come into the question at all. In their stupidity, kings think that we fulfill their wishes, but we, the ministers, are the real sovereigns. Outwardly, we bow and approve of everything, but what actually happens is determined by us." Several ministers agreed with him, but others had misgivings and said, "We should fulfill the last wish of the king. It would be a serious sin not to do this." The Prime Minister actually laughed at them, but to reassure them, he made the following proposal. "I know we can fulfill his last wish and avoid any disadvantage to ourselves. We will have cheap imitations of the piece of the jewelry. I know how we can fulfill his last wish and avoid any disadvantage to ourselves. We will have cheap imitations of the pieces of jewelry produced. We can then give those away and thus fulfill our promise." The Maharaja had heard enough. He came back from samadhi, sat up in his bed, and loudly sang Om. The ministers froze in fright. However, the Prime Minister quickly got a hold of himself, raised his arms, and cried, "God be praised, our beloved master is alive." The Maharaja merely said, "Stop the undignified theater. I overheard everything and know exactly how you follow my orders and keep your promises." On the same day, he distributed his jewelry to the poor with his own hands and divided land holdings amongst the farmers and ashrams. Ashram means spiritual centers similar to monastic communities. Many families and also many ashrams still have the property given to them on that day. Maharaja Jaswant Singh left a diary that has been handed down to us. You can read this yourself. The last sentence says, "Yours is only that which you accomplish with your own hands. Everything that you spend on pleasure and feasting is lost. Only what you have done for others is really your property. After your death, you cannot produce any more. Therefore, do immediately everything you intend to do." What a test indeed, Dreamweaver. I am well. Thank you for asking, Anaki. The story has several meanings. Firstly, it shows how easily people allow themselves to be led astray by power and possessions. Secondly, it reminds us not to put off our good intentions, but to carry them out immediately. Thirdly, it instructs us not to rely on others, and to do ourselves whatever it is we would like to accomplish. Do not look back. What was yesterday is gone. Work towards whatever you would like to achieve unwaveringly, and continue to practice. To those who have attained wisdom, it is clear that Maya, this material existence, is an erratic partner. One day bringing something pleasant, and the next day something unpleasant. Accept both with equanimity. In worldly life, external and internal disturbances will always continue to appear. Therefore, endeavor to maintain your inner harmony through the constant practice of self-discipline. It is recommended that you dedicate at least 1 to 2 hours of the day to spiritual practice and meditation. The place for meditation should be kept as free of Maya and Pravṛtti, materialism, as possible, and only used for practicing yoga. On the other hand, you should not overdo the quote-unquote retreat from the world. Under no circumstances allow your duties to family or society to be neglected. And if someone needs help, it is our duty to help. Move within Maya like a tightrope walker performing their art in front of a crowd. They delight the people with their performance, but does not allow their cheering, applause, or laughter to distract them even for a second. They give their undivided attention and concentration to their steps upon the rope. Sri Kabir Das, who was a lyricist, poet, philosopher, and saint, said in one of his poems, "Maya is an artful deceiver. Treat her with great care, because you never know in which form and in which way she seeks to tempt you. Therefore, go attentively and cautiously through the world, just as you would if you were walking through a coal mine in pure white clothes. Avoid any inadvertent contact, otherwise you could all too easily end up with black stains on your clothing. As human beings, we have numerous powers and abilities within us. Most people, however, are not conscious of them and are therefore unable to use them advantageously. They behave like one who has carelessly thrown away a valuable diamond, thinking that it was a worthless piece of glass. Always become conscious that this human life is priceless. We can buy almost everything with money, but not life. Not even for $1 billion are we able to delay death for a fraction of a second within the time our earthly life has run out. Therefore, make use of every minute of your existence and decide upon the spiritual path. So, my dear ones, thank you for listening to another section of The Hidden Power in Humans. What a wonderful passage and story about Pravṛtti and Nivṛtti, the two ways of life. I hope that was insightful to you, as it was for me.